Hi guys, welcome to the first day of school. I know things are going to be a little different this year because you're not all going to be here with me each day, but hopefully you'll get to see a little peek of what we do every day on these videos. I'm going to be sending you some videos just like this one each week that show me teaching reading and tell a little bit about our class and how we do things. So as we learn together, whether you're at home or whether you're here at school, we're going to be studying the same thing, we're going to be learning the same things, and we're going to learn it together. So as we do different videos, I hope you learn just like the other kids do. Today is our first day back to school, so I'm excited to talk to you about some new things. You know, when we think about the first of anything, it can be a little intimidating. When I think about my first of anything, I can either be excited or I can be nervous. I might feel scared. All of those feelings are normal. And sometimes I can feel all those things at the same time. Have you ever felt nervous or scared about doing something for the first time? You know, we all have those times. And it doesn't matter if it's school or maybe making a team where you're going to get to play with a sport for the first time. Maybe it is moving into a new house for the first time. Maybe you get a new brother or a new little sister, and that's going to be new for the first time. All of these things that happen that are new can give us a funny feeling inside. And so we're going to talk about some words today that we're going to see in our story, but that also go with that funny feeling. I call it the word jitters. And so if we look over here at our vocabulary words, these are words that are on our word wall that we're going to get to see in our story. We're also going to talk about them all week. And so these words we're going to go over together. So when I say the word, you repeat it after me. Are you ready? I'll start. Jitters, gushed, clammy, fumbled, trudged, nervous, nonsense. Good. So as we talk about each one of these words, I'd like for us to talk about what they mean and what they mean to you or what they make you think of. When I think about the word jitters, I think about something that shakes a lot. Maybe, you know, a tea kettle. If you've ever seen a tea kettle on the stove, when it gets ready, it starts to have steam built up inside and it'll shake a little bit and steam will start to come out of the top. It might even start to make that whistling sound. But you know, the word jitters can also mean something else. It doesn't always have to mean something that shakes. When I think about the word jitters, I think about our dog Charlie. When he gets nervous because it's stormy outside, you can actually see his body shaking because he's scared. He's scared of the storm. But like I said, it doesn't always have to mean shaking. On the inside, we can have the jitters. And that just means that we're nervous or we're scared about something that's about to happen. Maybe we're even a little bit excited. Depending on what's going to happen, if we're waiting on an event to happen, we might feel the jitters inside. So that makes me think of being nervous. Our character in our book this week has the jitters, and so we're going to be talking about that. Gushed. Something gushes, it spills out over the top. When I think about the word gushed, I think about water just shooting out or spilling out over the top of something, maybe all out into the floor. Maybe if a bridge or where the dam that holds water back, if it breaks, water would just come pouring out over the side, so it would gush out onto the land that's nearby. You know, we can also gush with our emotions. We talked about being a little nervous or a little scared. We might even be a little bit excited about something. But you can gush with excitement. Think about if you just made a team for the very first time. You might jump up and celebrate, or maybe you won a game with your team. You would just gush with excitement. So you would just be spilling that emotion out all over the place. On the other hand, you might be really sad about something. So if you gush tears down your face, you could be really sad or upset about something that happened. Our next word is clammy. When I think about the word clammy, I think about my hands. My hands can feel clammy. They might feel sweaty. You know how they get wet. We get nervous, and you really don't know what to expect's happening next. Your hands can feel that way, clammy. Our next word is fumbled. Sometimes when we get nervous, we might fumble, we might drop something or make something fall with our hands. We might not catch it very easily. So if you drop something or miss something like that with your hands, if your hands, especially if they're clammy, you might fumble around and drop something. Our next word is trudged. When I think about the word trudged, I think about somebody walking in big, heavy boots through the snow. Trudging through the snow. You know, it's hard to walk in snow, isn't it? If you've ever been to the beach, it's also hard to walk in the sand. And you might trudge through the sand because it's hard to walk. Another time that someone might have difficulty walking is if they're nervous about something. What if you're in a play and you're about to go out on stage and you're waiting behind the curtain for your turn, and maybe you really are nervous and don't want to go out in front of the crowd? You might trudge slowly out onto that stage, right? Making it last as long as it can before you get there. Our next word is nervous. If I'm nervous about something, that means I'm worried about it. I might be excited. It might be something good that I'm nervous about. Maybe it's a birthday party and I'm nervous about all my friends coming over and what kind of fun we're going to have. It could be a bad kind of nervous too, like, oh, what if I made a bad grade on my test? So I'm worried about something. The word nervous and the word jitters mean about the same thing. If I'm nervous, I might have the jitters. So they're synonyms. Remember that a synonym is a word that means the same. S for synonym, S for same. That's how I can remember that. Our last word is nonsense. If something is nonsense, that means it's not really allowed or it's not appropriate at that time. It was nonsense for the boy to yell out in the middle of the lesson. That means that it wasn't appropriate. So if something is nonsense, it's not acceptable or it's not appropriate at that time. Well, all of these words make me wonder what our story is going to be about. So let's go ahead and look at it. Our story today is called First Day Jitters. When I look at the front cover, I can already be thinking about that word jitters and nervous because I see a character in the bed with the covers pulled up over their nose, and they are nervously looking at the calendar. And circled on the calendar it says, first day of school. So I can go ahead and predict right now that my character is probably not ready for the first day of school. Look, her eyes are big. She looks nervous, doesn't she? Even the animals in the picture look nervous too. Well, let's see what happens. Sarah, dear, time to get out of bed, Mr. Hartwell said, poking his head through the bedroom doorway. You don't want to miss the first day of your new school, do you? Oh, not only is it the first day, but it's the first day of a new school. Well, I might be nervous on the first day, But I would be even more nervous if I was going to a new school on the first day too, wouldn't you? I'm not going, said Sarah, and she pulled the covers up over her head. Of course you're going, honey, said Mr. Hartwell as he walked over to the window and snapped up the shade. No, I'm not. I don't want to start over again. I hate my new school, said Sarah. She tunneled down to the end of her bed. How can you hate your new school, sweetheart? Mr. Hartwell chuckled. You've never even been there before. Don't worry. You liked your other school. You'll like this one too. Besides, just think of all the new friends that you'll meet. That's just it. I don't know anybody, and it will be hard, and I just hate it. That's all. What was hard about this year starting to school? Let's think for a minute. Was there anything hard about starting school this year? As I think about how things began over the summer, first of all, we've moved everything to a brand new building, haven't we? So we're in a new school, kind of like Sarah's going to a new school. We don't know where anything is. You know, we don't know what it's going to be like because we haven't got there yet. Also, we're starting a new grade. So you're going to have a new teacher and new kids in your class. All of that can be hard. But I can think of another thing that's going to make this year hard. And that's this virus that we have to worry about. As we think about this COVID virus and people are scared or nervous about that, we might see people wearing masks at school. We might have to do things differently. All of that makes it hard, doesn't it? So I think we can relate to Sarah, can't we, and how she's feeling. What will everyone think if you aren't there? We told them you were coming. Look, they've got missing posters out for her, and the police and search dogs are looking for her. They will think that I'm lucky, and they will wish they were at home in bed just like me. Mr. Hartwell sighed. Sarah Jane Hartwell, I'm not playing this silly game 1 second longer. I'll see you downstairs in 5 minutes. Sounds like Mr. Hartwell means business, doesn't it? Sarah tumbled out of bed. She stumbled into the bathroom. She fumbled into her clothes. Look at her. My head hurts, she moaned as she trudged into the kitchen. Mr. Hartwell handed Sarah a piece of toast and her lunchbox. They walked to the car. Sarah's hands were cold and clammy. They drove down the street. She couldn't breathe. What do you think's wrong with her? Her hands are clammy and she can't breathe. That's right, she's nervous, isn't she? There it is, they're there. And then they were there. I feel sick, said Sarah weakly. Nonsense, said Mr. Hartwell. You'll love your new school once you get started. Oh, look, there's your principal, Mr. Burton. Sarah slumped down into her seat. Oh, Sarah, Mrs. Burton gushed, peeking into the car. There you are. Come on, I'll show you where to go. She led Sarah into the building and walked quickly through the crowded hallways. "Don't worry, everyone is nervous the first day," she said over her shoulder as Sarah rushed to keep up. When they got to the classroom, most of the children were already in their seats. The class looked up as Mrs. Burton cleared her throat. "Class, attention please," said Mrs. Burton. When the class was quiet, she led Sarah to the front of the room and said, "Class, I would like for you to meet your new teacher, Mrs. Sarah Jane Hartwell." Sounds to me like even teachers get nervous. I thought through the whole book it was a student getting ready to go to school. Did you? What were you thinking about the character nervous about going to school? Were you thinking it was the student? Or were you thinking it was the teacher? Well, this story just proves that anyone can be nervous about the first time we do something. So this week we're going to do some activities with First Day Jitters. And so before we get started with our own work, I'd like to do an activity with you. So if we look over to the board, I have a chart. And on this chart, we're going to be mapping out the story. So this is a story map, and I have the author, Julie Danberg, and I have the title, First Day Jitters. So let's talk about some parts of this story. Were there any characters in the story? That's right, we had Sarah. Who else? Mr. Hartwell, who was, well, we thought the dad, but I guess it was her husband. We also had the principal. If I can spell it right. And we had the students. Even though there were lots of characters that were mentioned in the book, let's think about our main characters. Our main characters were actually just Sarah and Mr. Hartwell. All right, let's go to our next box, the setting. What is the setting of the story? Well, the setting tells us when and where the story takes place. So when was this story taking place? Let's put the first day of school. And where was the story taking place at? The setting actually changed, didn't it? At the beginning of the story, where were they? They were at home. And then it changed at the end of the story. Where did they go? That's right, they went to the school. So we'll put both of them up there. Now let's think about the plot. So the plot, P-L-O-T, I'm going to write it right here. The plot is what's happening in the story. We have a beginning, we have a middle, and then we have the ending of the story. So let's think back to our story and let's think about the events of the story and how they happened in order. And I want to think about the beginning. What was the plot at the beginning of the story? What was happening at the beginning of the story? Well, Sarah was in bed and she didn't want to get up. She didn't want to get up because she didn't want to what? She didn't want to go to school. Okay? In the middle. What happened in the middle of the story? So we think back to she finally got out of bed and she started getting dressed, right? Let's put on here Mr. Hartwell because he was a pretty important character too. because he had to convince her to go, right? Mr. Hartwell made Sarah get ready for school. Because without him, she probably would not have gone, would she? She probably would have stayed right there in bed. All right, now let's think about the ending. As we think about how the story ended, what are some events that you can remember that happened at the end of the story? Okay, so Sarah finally went to school. And she met her class. So as I'm thinking about this story, I'm going to think about the theme of a story. The theme of a story is what we see throughout the whole story. What connects our whole story? Even though there's a beginning, a middle, and an ending, what is the overall idea that the author wants us to know? That's the theme. So the theme of this story, the overall idea that the author wants us to get from the story is what? What do you think? What are you thinking? That's right. Go back to our vocabulary words. Nervous and jitters stick out in my mind. Those are the two most important things. I think the author wants us to know that everyone gets nervous. Even though Sarah ended up being the teacher, she had some nervousness about starting the first day of school. So the theme that this story has is starting something for the first time can make you feel nervous. And anybody can feel nervous. Everyone gets nervous at some time or another. And so as we think about that, we should feel better about the things that we get nervous about, because we can see that it happens to everyone else too, doesn't it? All right, so this is a cute little story, and like I said, we're going to do some more activities with it this week. Look on your Google Classroom page for the activities that go along with this story. I'll see you later. Bye.